just while people roll in the room, what you do last weekend?
Me last weekend. All right. So first of all, I watched a lot of football, right? You got to do that on the very first one. But
Absolutely.
all of my teams lost except for my step team, and it was the most exciting game I'd ever seen. It came down to the last second, the last play. It's just one of those high school things that you cannot relive. I'm sure they'll talk about that forever.
Yeah, right. That's exciting. That's fun. My wife's in Alabama. We watch college. I don't really do pro, but although I'm in two fantasy leagues that I did win both of my games. Um, but I'm a college guy. My wife, Alabama fan, so really hated seeing Texas beat Alabama. Not really. Don't tell my wife I said that. But so yeah, got some college football.
Yeah, well, Texas don't have any fans in this house, right? Courtney's an Aggie. She went to A&M. I went to Baylor, so you're not going to hear us, doing any Longhorn cheers over here.
Right. Well, I did on Saturday, but silently. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, let me get this thing kicked off. So, welcome to today's Cash Flow Mastery Talks with Cash Flow Mike. My name is Gary Dehart. I'm the publisher of Insightful Accountant and the host of the Accounting Insiders podcast. This is just a short 30-minute webinar, and Mike is going to be discussing uncovering profitability ratios, maximizing your profit margins. So as a reminder, this webinar does not, I'm shaking my head, does not qualify for CPE. It's only 30 minutes. But if you do have questions, we just ask that you put them in the chat or in the Q&A panel, not the chat. Put them in the Q&A panel and be specific in the question. Don't just say, hey, Mike, what did you mean? Because it might be 10 minutes before he answers that question. The recording of this session will be posted to our YouTube channel, and I will put that link to that in the chat once I go dark. Before I turn over this session to Mike, I would like to ensure that everybody is aware of our upcoming events, some more webinars that we have coming up. QB Talks is next Wednesday. Murph will be sharing updates for QuickBooks Desktop 2024. Mike, I'm sure you've got that on your calendar. And then TPN Tax Talks is next Thursday at noon. And Christine will be discussing tax breaks from qualified opportunity zones. Another one for me. Anything about tax, there's some good fun right there. Then lastly, we have our Future Forward Summit, which takes place September 26th and 27th. We have 8 sessions over those 2 days, and they are all CPE eligible, as is our QB Talks. The focus for Future Forward Summit is advisory, analytics, and AI. I'll be putting the links to all 3 of these into the chat once I turn this over to Mike. And they will also be included in the follow-up email that you will receive tomorrow. So without any more delay, I am going to go dark. So I'll be sitting here in the background. And Mike, it is all yours. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, I want to thank you. I'm so excited about this series, right? It's once a month, the second Wednesday of every month, and we are talking cash flow every single month. So, Gary, thank you for the opportunity for us to share, right? Sharing it. Now, here it is, live from San Antonio is Cash Flow Mike, right? That's basically how I'm going to start today. Is live from San Antonio's Cash Flow Mike. So, what I do with this one is, if you're part of my group, if you're part of the Clear Path to Cash or the Pathfinder program is part of Cash Flow Mike. This is kind of different new material. I'm using this to kind of test out some new things, some new ideas. There might be a mix of old concepts, but man, this is really somewhere where I'm kind of trying to just impart some good new things. So today we're going to talk about, profitability ratio, specifically gross profit margin. To me, this is the most important number that's on the income statement. It is the only place that you can get cash to spend on your operating expense or put in your pocket as profit or retained earnings. So that's what we're going to talk about, is how important this gross profit margin really is. And I'll give you some examples of, it doesn't matter if you're a big company or a small company, everybody can have a problem with gross profit margin, and I'll put that out. So if you have any questions, shoot them out. Also feedback, right? So because this is new for both Gary and I, any feedback you got to make this better, things that you might want to see. I already have a year planned, but if you got things that you think I should be touching on, let me know. Tell me what you think of this, because it's just for your use, right? It's just for you guys to get some information about cash flow. So why is it important? Why is this cash flow thing even important? Why do I talk so much about it? What does it mean? What does it matter? right? Well, let's think about it. There's a few things about it. First of all, it's the only place you can get money, right? Like I said, to spend. But there's four other things. It's a profitability check, because if you don't make gross profit, there's no way that you're going to be able to make net profit. It just doesn't exist that way. Additionally, it's a healthy sign of a business, right? It means the first things people are going to look at is where's the cash coming from. They're going to be looking at your business to make sure it's healthy and making sure that you're generating cash. When you look at the cash flow statement, they talk about operating activities. They're talking a lot about, can you generate cash with your business? Just your core business, what you sell and what's left over afterwards. Lastly, it talks about how it connects you to smart pricing. This is going to say, if you use things like industry average to make your prices right, or if you use the industry average on gross profit, that also means you're part of the market, meaning that you're average, which means your prices are right in line with what people expect, because that's the average. Most people are expecting that. So if you're making an average amount of gross profit, then you're also doing what the market expects. And then lastly, you can plan for the future, right? Gross profit helps you plan for the future and figure out how much you can spend on things or save for later. So that's why it's important. Gross profit is cash. So think about that. So how much do you need? This is where most people get confused. They're like, I just don't know. We're guessing, right? We're going by our gross profit margin to the industry average, or we're looking back historically and saying, oh, I liked it in 2019 when I made 35% gross profit. That's what I want to do again. Both of those methods are okay. They're quick, they're easy, they're fun. But there's also a mathematical way to be able to determine how much gross profit you should have in any company. So I'm going to teach you some math, right? You can't go to a cash flow Mike class and not learn math. So what we're going to do is, hey, here's what it is. You've got sales as an example of 8 million. We've got 4.5 million in cost of goods sold and 3.9 million in gross profit. So I think everybody kind of knows how that is. So 8.4 minus 4.5 equals 3.9. Why I pick these hard numbers, I don't know. I should just pick round numbers, right? Because it's easier for us to follow. But for some reason, 8.4 popped in my head first. It doesn't have to be millions. This could be thousands. It could be hundreds of thousands. It could be hundreds of dollars. But no matter how you slice and dice this or put an M or a K or anything afterwards, the numbers mean the same. Well, here are the steps to calculating gross profit, how much you need, right? First of all, you're going to calculate up what your operating expense. What does it cost you just to live per month? What does it cost you just to keep your business on and open? That's your administrative type salaries. That's your occupancy expenses. That's your advertising, marketing, those type of things. Calculate up what it takes you to operate every single month. Then here's something that nobody adds, right? We're not thinking about this, but if you've listened to me at all, you know what you need to do is build transferable value in your business. So building transferable value is pretty simple. It's a concept that's simple is, do I have enough money to do whatever it is I want to do next, right? After you're going to put time and money and energy and all this stuff into your business, there has to be some dream that your clients have or that you have for your own business. What do you want to do next? For some of us, it's sitting on the lake and drinking coffee as the sun comes up. For others, they want to travel the world, or they want to do other things. Maybe they want to buy into a bigger company that's more scalable. Whatever that is, you're supposed to use the business that you're currently in today to generate transferable value, which means generate wealth to finance and fund whatever it is you want to do next. If you don't plan for it up front, it's not going to happen. So one of the concepts that I teach in my course is to actually calculate what is your transferable value number and plan for it every single month. That way you're contributing towards it, and the sale of your business closes that last mile. So if I'm trying to make $1 million is my goal, well, if I'm contributing every single month for 10 years or however long I want to before I want to retire, then the sale of my business closes that gap. Whatever I'm short, the sale just covers it and gives me gravy over the top. So we're going to add in how much transferable value that we need to get out of this company. And we're going to add profit. You have to keep some money in the company, right? In order to be a company that can grow, it takes money to fuel the beast to grow. So you have to plan for profit. So we're going to add these things together, right? The operating expense, the transferable value, and the profit. And that would tell us how much gross profit that we need. Those three things: operating expense, transferable value, and profit needed to grow. Those three things equal the gross margin that we need, or the gross profit that we need. Then we take our gross profit, which is our target gross profit. That's operating expense, transferable value, and profit. We take gross profit divided by whatever we're selling at. And right now we know that we're selling at 8.4 million, and multiply that by 100. That tells us the gross margin percentage that we need to meet our goals. So let me show you how that works in math. Hopefully you're following that. So this is the same scenario, 8.4, 4.5, 3.9. This is the tool that I use called the MiniPiano. I use it for practically everything to have to do with planning, right? It helps me determine break even. It helps me determine how much more I have to sell if I add expense. This short little tool that works like a Sudoku puzzle will help keep you focused on what matters most. And in this case, it's cash and gross profit. So the way this is set up is that only one number can fit in any of these boxes. It's two columns. One is for dollars. The other is for percentage. And what you see here is just the main categories. I call that clearing the noise. When we clear the noise, we just ignore the sub accounts that go underneath these and just focus on the large, topic. So it's like we've planted all these trees all month long or all year long or all our life long. Now let's take a step back, maybe get in an airplane or a drone and see what we built, right? We're going to look at it from a bird's eye view. All right. So we've got sales is always 100% because the percentages are always a percentage of sales, right? So that's what we're going to do. And let's fill in the blanks. So everything's a word problem to me, right? I have 8.4 million in sales. So I put that there under the dollars. I've got 4.5 million in cost of goods sold. Don't need to put that in yet, but I know gross profit is 3.9. Don't need to put that in yet, but I know I've got 3.5 million in operating expense. I already did the calculation. And I know I like to make about 4.8 or 5% net profit. So you can do this if you have these three numbers, right? How much are you selling currently? How much are you paying out each month? And how much do you want to make in a percentage? If you know those three, the other ones are easy to fill in the blank. For instance, I know now that net profit is 4.8% of sales. So that's a number I could fill in. I also know that I want $100,000 in transferable value. That's what I calculated. I need $100,000 a year out of my company to give me. And then I want to add something to the pot, right? 300,000. So I've got 400,000 should be about 4.8% of 8.4 million. And out of that 400,000, 100 goes to me, 300 stays in the business. All right. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to add these things together. I got 400,000 in profit. I broke it out into some for me, some for the company. I'm going to add 400,000 to my operating expense, which should give me 3.9 million, right? So you can see how this is starting to line up, how it's starting to fall together. If that's true, 8.4 minus 3.9 million, right, equals 4.5 million. Now, all of a sudden, I've got all of the dollar amounts lined up, and I can start doing the percentages. Remember in math, if I want to know percentages and I want to know a number or anything like that, I divide when it's a larger number. I multiply when I want to know a smaller number. So in this case, I want to start adding in percentages. And the first thing I've got is 4.5 million is 53.6% of sales. How did I get there? 4.5 divided by 8.4. 4.5 divided by 8.4 equals 53.6. If that's true, I can do the next step one of two ways. 100 minus this number equals my gross profit margin percentage. Remember I said I'm going to teach you how to get to that point. There it is. Gross profit margin percentage is 100 minus 53.6, or I could take 3.9 and divide that by 8.4. In either case, it's 46.4%. All we did was take 100 minus 53 equals 46. That's how much I need, right? If I'm going to get $400,000 in net profit, then I need 46.4% or 3.9 million in gross profit. That's how you build it out. And the other ones just fall in. Operating expense in is 4.1%. My transferable value to me, I'm going to take 1% for me. I'm going to take and leave 4% for the company. All right. So I've got a question, Q&A. What's the difference between transferable value and profit to grow? Aren't they both used to grow? Good one. That's a great question. So here's the thing. I like to, when I'm working with a client, I like to start with the end in mind, which is if we're going to work together, if we're going to spend time where I'm going to give you advice on what to do, I need to know what you're going to do next. So if you're telling me that you need to, or you want to retire on a lake, and like I said, watch the sun come up and watch the sun go down, what I know is that it takes a certain amount of money to live that way. The average length of retirement is 25 years. So if you retire or leave your business today, and I'm talking to my client, that means once you're done, there's about 25 years that we have to account for in both the sale of your business and your retirement savings. Transferable value is your contribution to your own retirement savings. It's to yourself. So the difference between profit to grow and to transferable value is transferable value goes to me, the owner. Profit to go stays in the company. I'm going to leave money in the company, so I'm not robbing it. One of the things that we do terribly as business owners is we take too much out of the company. So what we try to do is plan for how much we can take as part of our forecasting. And I call that forecasting by the numbers, where we're actually determining whether or not our plan can finance our transferable value. So hope that worked. I mean, transferable value is what we're presenting to the owner to finance his future. Profit to grow is the money that we're presenting to the company to finance the company's future. All right. Cool. Thank you. All right. So as I said in the beginning, you don't have to be a small company to have a gross profit problem. Believe it or not, the company that we think is super awesome had a gross profit problem, right? Everybody thinks that Apple makes entirely too much money in some cases, but they actually had a problem early on with their phones, right? They were producing all these phones, but their problem with gross profit is it was such a small margin because they're high manufacturing costs. It costs too much money to produce an Apple phone, believe it or not. So here are 6 things that they did, right? So back then, I mean, here's 6 things that they did. And what you're going to see is some things that you probably saw them do and didn't realize what they were doing was fixing the gross profit problem. First of all, they started producing more. When they produced more, what they were doing was coming up with ways to come out with more and more versions. That's why there was this period of time between, we'll say, 2012 and 2019, where they came out like almost once a year, a new one came out. But what they were doing was meeting production and manufacturing quotas because they had these contracts to produce more phones. That's why the most of the changes were in software back then, because they could have about the same phone, or they would make changes in the camera or things that they could change out and interchange real easily. But they made larger contracts to produce more. And by producing more and guaranteeing more sales, they actually reduced their prices. So that was one of the ways they brought that down. They also started to expand out into lower margin products. That's why you saw everything came out, right? You had iPods and iPads and I mean, all these other items. So they started to diversify, and it doesn't matter what it is. As long as there's an Apple on it, we buy it for some reason. Then they started differentiating themselves. That's why they had the regular cadence, and they did that to be able to justify new prices. And that's why they moved the prices. If you remember, we used to be able to get an iPhone for $200, $300, $400. Now it's, I think I heard the price on the newest 15 is around $1,600 on the high end. So $1,000 to $1,600. That's a huge jump in price because they're trying to be innovative and differentiation, but also move gross profit up. Then we got premium pricing. They relied on the quality of the brand in order to get more money out of us in the pricing. But here was the one that nobody really thinks of. I mean, when they added Apple Care and the iCloud storage and the App Store, where they get 30% of every app that you buy from, that actually complemented the hardware. It was a nice complementary service, but it jumped gross profit immensely because there was low cost in all of these for Apple. And then lastly, they became very particular about how parts came into the supply chain process, what parts went in, where they came from. They managed every piece of it and tried to control cost and eliminate unnecessary steps like moving from one place to another. They would consolidate functions into one manufacturing plant rather than, have to ship these things around for one part over here and one part over there. All right. So thank you, Don. Got it. So that was Apple. And you're like, okay, well, that's manufacturing. We don't really have manufacturing, or we don't have all these parts and retail and things like that. What about like a service-based company or kind of something more committed to, committed to just providing a service for us? So I looked for another company that had a huge gross profit margin problem, and it's one you probably wouldn't expect, right? And it's this one. Believe it or not, they also, Starbucks, had a gross profit problem. Now, if you've been through the clear path to cash before, I always talk about Apple and Starbucks, mainly because they have examples of things that big companies can make mistakes, same as small companies. The problem with Starbucks was their loyalty and their discount program. Right? It was cutting into when they gave away, free coffees on their loyalty program or referrals. They would give away discounts for new customers or different products. It cut into their profit margin immensely. And they saw a big drop in gross profit as soon as they installed this loyalty program. So over the last several years, they had been adjusting their loyalty program to account for the loss in gross profit. And here's how they've done it. First of all, they have to do the actual loyalty program because that's what makes us come back, right? These promotions, making it easy, using the cards. I mean, at some point in time, they have more money in cards than they do actually in the bank account. Right? They actually have, it's a liability to them, but they still have the cash, and sometimes it's not used. Then they've got, they personalized everything. They started to personalize every single ad that comes out to you, email or otherwise, based on your buying preference. If you're somebody that likes caramel macchiatos, they're going to encourage you to get the caramel macchiato, but maybe the croissant or the blueberry scone over the top of it. They're going to encourage you to try to become more profitable based on your own buying habits. They're going to bundle their services to get you to spend more and boost up your average ticket. Then started engineering the menu better. If you look at it, here's one of the things I always talk about Starbucks. They engage, and it's down here as well, price adjustments and menu engineering. They engage in what I call active pricing, which means they practice the actual, what is that called? The price elasticity of demand, which means they continue to raise prices all the way into the point where they see demand come down, and then they hold the price there for a while. And if you notice, none of the pricing on the product is the same, even though it's just coffee and they might have a different flavor. One of them might be $4.65, another one would be $4.35. Or might be $4.20. All of them are about 5 cents off, or they're categories of 5. Zeros and fives are the ends, right? Because they raise their prices 5 to 15 cents every 3 to 4 months just to see where the demand is. And they've done that when they engineer the menu, they're highlighting their premium products. That's why you see pictures for the frappes and the cool stuff that makes you just want it because it just looks so enticing. The menu engineering is pushing you towards the higher margin products like the ice, right? Where they're just grinding ice and flavoring the ice and putting a little coffee over the top. They're trying to get you to buy the higher gross profit margin products. And then, of course, if you look behind there, their machines, the way they have you move through the line, the way they process an order, all of it's become an exercise in efficiency, the same way McDonald's did. If you've ever seen the movie The Founder, it's the same thing that's happened inside Starbucks, but you don't see a lot of crossing back and forth. There's, people in the back are doing the food, people in front are making the coffees. I mean, there's a really good process behind the scenes that happen for them to be able to increase gross profit by using loyalty programs and discounts a little bit better. So here are the 5 biggest influencers of gross profit. So if you're looking at your client's business or yours, these are the 5 big culprits, right? How efficient are you at doing your job, not being repetitive, not doing things like that? What is the product mix? When I worked with a manufacturing company up in Seattle, they had a huge gross profit problem, mainly because the cost of their raw material, aluminum, went up. But their contract was with Boeing, and there was no escalator clause or the ability to allow them to adjust the price for a part. So when the raw material price came up, they were stuck at what they could sell that part to Boeing for. So with that in mind, aluminum actually bypassed their product. So aluminum spiked, and it was like they were building the product or the part and putting a $50 bill on it and sending it to Boeing. It's like they were losing $50 on every part that they made because they couldn't raise prices. So the right mix That's where you'll see, you don't want to have too much of your loss leader. I used to do 25-cent wings in a restaurant. We had to get rid of that because when we started doing the cost per, they were actually 32 cents per wing. So I was losing 7 cents on every single wing that I sent out there, just because I was dumb and didn't look at it that way. Sales volume is how many, right? You can sell a lot more. That actually increases your gross profit. What does it take you to make it or buy it? And then pricing. I have to stick with pricing. I have a gross profit calculator. If you want it, email me at mike@cashflowmike.com. It's a spreadsheet where you never get the price wrong. You put in the percentages you're trying to get and the cost of what you're trying to make or trying to sell, and it tells you what the price of that, so you never get the price wrong. If you want that spreadsheet, just let me know. I'll email it out to you. Just mike@cashflowmike.com, and you never get your price wrong. All right, so here's kind of where this fits. People don't think about their business as something that works together. It's like a cause and effect chart. These things don't operate in silos. They actually operate where low net profit margin leads to negative operating cash flow, which leads to a need for more money, which leads to higher interest expense, which leads to net profit. So one begets the other. But I want to focus on this part right here, right? This part is the product mix, bad pricing, shrinkage, bad purchases, markdowns, low productivity, missing discounts. Those all contribute to low gross profit margin. So here's what I mean by that. I don't think most small businesses aren't looking at their markdown strategy very well. That's why you have too much inventory, right? If somebody says, "Oh, you got too much inventory because it's not selling through fast enough." First of all, how do you know if your inventory is too old, right? The easy part is just blow on it. So if dust comes off of it, it shouldn't be there. You should be moving your business faster than dust can collect on it. But the markdown strategy you'll see like Target or Walmart or the big ones use is that it's on a time based, right? If something didn't sell in 30 days, you're going to mark it down 10% or so. If something didn't sell in 60 days, they mark it down to maybe 35 or 25% off. And you'll see them do that until it's gone because they don't want the inventory to sit there. They want to move through it because it's just dead money. So they'll continue to mark it down. And sometimes they'll even take a loss on it just to move it, right? But still get contribution margin, which is I got some money in to help pay for fixed expense. Then we got, shrinkage becoming more and more of a problem. If you just watch the news, think about all the companies right now that have had to close or move or otherwise just because products being taken off the shelf by either customers or even your employees sometimes. Bad pricing, I think, is the biggest one. So is profit mix. That's why I've got those at top. So these are the ones that contribute mostly to gross profit margin. So here's my final thought as we kind of wrap up. Final thought on gross profit. If you're doing this right, if you're managing the gross profit, you will see net profit kind of mirror your sales. So the dotted line is sales. Net profit is the black line. When you see this, you'll see those two move together. They will mirror each other if you're managing gross profit right. These two numbers will match each other. And here's why. Maybe. I got stuck. See if I can get that down. Gary, this is where I told you I messed up my whole presentation right here. Oh, there it is. I did that. Okay, try it that way. All right, we're going to have to deal with these behind us. Anyway, I'm going to use the MiniPiano, and I'm going to show you why this works like this. First of all, it's a MiniPiano. If I sell something for $1 and I make 25%, and my operating expenses are 25 cents, zero. This is called break even. The rule is at break even, net profit moves at the gross profit percentage. Here's what I mean by that. When I add just one more dollar in sales, so I go from $1 to $2, just adding one more dollar, that makes my cost of goods sold still 25%, right? 50 cents. Operating expenses is the same because I'm at break even. I've paid all my bills and I now have 25 cents net profit. So you'll see that at break even, once you've paid for all your expenses, net profit will move at the gross profit percentage. For every new dollar in sales, you're going to get, in this case, 25 cents in net profit. That's why they'll move together and mirror each other. So that's the rule on that. Is at break even, net profit will move or increase by the gross profit percentage. And in this case, every new dollar in sales adds 25 cents to net profit because gross profit is 25%. So there it is, 30 minutes. I think I almost made it in time if I didn't have to goof with that one slide. That's the one I was trying to fix right before. But I do have a copy of a book, 7-Minute Conversation. If you haven't downloaded it, it's for free on my website. Go to cashflowmike.com, analyze any business in 7 minutes or less. You can also join my Facebook group, which I give out a lot of free resources in the Facebook group. It's just a clear path to cash, finding hidden cash in your business. I got a podcast, Mike and Blaine. It's on all the directories. And if you need anything or you want that gross profit pricing calculator, just contact me at Mike at Cashflow Gary, thanks, man.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's always great information. And one thing that Mike said when he first kicked off, and that was feedback. And so he's got his email address there. I'm looking over here because that's where my screen is. So he has his email address, Mike at cashflowmike.com. We certainly would love some feedback. If there's, like he said, if there's topics you'd like for him to try to cover, or if he's talking too fast, talking too slow, or if anything, right? Even Mike, if you talked about something that somebody's not fully clear on, they can just shoot you an email and you'll help clarify, right?
Yeah. Mark had a question about net profit. I want to answer real quick before we closed. Sure. He goes, how am I determining it? There's two different ways. One is I always look at the industry average. If everyone else makes 5%, I think I should make that or more. Or I look back historically and say, hey, we've always, made 8%. Why can't I make that this year? So, I mean, it's either historical average or I use the industry average to set my minimum. I should not be below that.
Great. All right. With that, again, I will send all those links that we talked about at the beginning. They'll be in tomorrow's follow-up. Link to Cashflow Mike will also be in that follow-up. So reach out, let us know some feedback, and we look forward to seeing you very soon. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you now. Appreciate that. Thanks.